Okay, so we will get started with the training sessions, and just a quick recap, like with regards to the training. So we will be having the training sessions starting from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. IST Indian time, and then we'll be having the training sessions Monday till Friday. Okay, so we will not be having the training sessions on Saturday and Sunday, and you will be getting access to the instance, and then by end of the day, same day or before the training session on the next day, right? The recordings of the previous sessions would be uploaded, and then you will be given access to the recordings. And then you will also be having access to the instances, which I already mentioned. And then coming to our training sessions, the structure of how my training sessions would be is like, before I get into the training, right, once we start the training session, the first 5 minutes of the training sessions would be in Q&A. So we normally, I normally encourage the trainees is like, once we complete the session, right, try to spend at least, minimum an hour or two on daily basis, to go through and practice whatever we have been through that particular day. And then, if you guys have any doubts or questions, then, we'll be discussing on the doubts and questions the next day on the first 5 minutes. And then we will get started with the training on that particular day topic. So each and every topic, mostly, most of the topics we will start with an PPT. Yeah, so we'll start the session with a similar PPT just to give a theoretical knowledge on what we are going to talk about. And then the PPTs would not be more than 10-15 minutes maximum, right? I'll try to have very short and crisp PPT just to give an theoretical information, but we'll be spending lot of time on the fusion application. So that's where you will get more hands-on and more experience. So that is one thing. And the second thing is, right, at the end of the training sessions, right, the last 5-10 minutes, again, we can, spend time to have a Q&A session if required. If there are no other doubts or questions, then, we will continue with the training. But if people have doubts and questions, then, we can just spend the last 5-10 minutes on the Q&As. And just because we have the Q&As at the beginning and at the end of the session, it doesn't mean that you cannot ask any questions during the sessions. Yes, you are always welcome to ask questions at any given point of time. So at any given point of time, you can start asking the questions. And if you feel that the questions can wait till the end of the sessions, then it is also absolutely fine. And as part of our training sessions, I will be sharing you a lot and lot of documents, related to the particular topics, and those documents would be shared on that, on the respective topic sessions. Okay, so it will not be shared, completely at the beginning of the training session, or it will not be shared, only at the end of it. It would be shared against, the respective day's topic, and then a consolidated documents will also be shared at the end of the training session as well. The reason being that, as part of our training sessions, we'll be referring to a lot and lot of articles, we'll be referring to certain blogs, Oracle blogs as well, to give you better understanding of the product, to give you a lot of, use cases. So we'll be looking into those as well. So again, as I said, we'll be sharing those documents, on the respective day where we are going to talk about the topic. And then the consolidated version would be shared at the end of the training sessions. And then you will also be given access to our instances where you can you will be having like multiple instances. If I can, let me see, I will just try to pull up the screen. So you will be getting an Excel file, a Google Drive like this, where you will have access to the Fusion applications, the usernames and the password. And this password keeps changing on weekly basis. So sometimes, every alternate day, this password gets changed. So you'll everything like would be updated against this. And then similarly, you will also be getting another drive where you can able to access the Fusion application, the recordings of our training sessions. So this is what I wanted to say before we get started. So any doubts or questions of our team before we get started? Manisha, can you able to hear us?
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I was not able to connect to the audio. Just now, when you are explaining the flow, then I connected. So I was not, I don't wanted to interrupt you. But before that, anything important, what I missed, anything is there? Can you
Uh,
explain? I mean,
Okay, I think one important point would be an introduction about myself. So my name is Harish, and I have like more than 14 years experience, and with Fusion Lab almost close to 10 years experience. I worked on modules like Core HR, Absence, ORC, Learn, Talent Management, these five modules, and minimal experience with payroll, compensation, and all the other modules. So just a quick introduction about you myself is what I think you would have missed, and then we would have missed your introduction.
yeah, good morning. I am Manisha Zade. I've completed my BTech in 2021, and I have already trained myself in embedded side, but because of recession and all, I didn't got a job. So right now I'm trying to explore this field, Oracle, and
Okay, fine, that's great. uh,
yeah,
so
sorry, I'm a little not unwell. That's why
no issues, please take care.
yeah.
So any other doubts or questions, Tim, before we get started?
No worries. Thank you.
Just trying to pull up another PPT. Okay, so Tim, before we get started, just wanted to let you know, for today and tomorrow, right, we'll have the session for 40, 50 minutes or maybe max 1 hour. The reason being is that, since this is just the beginning of the training sessions, that, we don't want to put too much of information, or we don't want to go, too fast into the training session. We'll just gradually get started with the pace of the training so that, it would be easy for you guys as well to follow the training sessions. So that's the reason, today and tomorrow, right, we'll wind up our training sessions by 8:50, 8:40, or 8:50 max, max by 9 o'clock. And then for tomorrow also, we will do the same. And then starting from, Wednesday, we'll have the complete 90 minutes of our training sessions. Okay. And then people, if you are not enrolled for the training sessions, please try to complete your enrollments by tomorrow. The reason being that, from Wednesday, the training sessions would be available only for the people who have completed your enrollments. Okay. So with that, let me get into the course agenda. So rather than, this is more from, the ORC perspective. So what I'll do is let me just get into it. Yes. So as I said, in this particular training session, we are going to look into, multiple modules. One, for the first module, which we are going to start, is we will be starting with the ORC module, the Oracle Recruiting Cloud. Okay. So we will start with the Oracle Recruiting Cloud, where we'll talk about, the introduction to recruiting. We are going to start from basics, we are going to start from scratch, telling, what is the purpose of each module? Why do we need this module? Who is going to be the end users? And then gradually we'll get into the configurations, right? Configurations, we are going to we'll start with the basic configuration, the roles, the securities, and then we will get into little detail into the recruiting related configurations. So the way how we design this training session is that, each and every topic will be a prerequisite for your next topics. So let's say, for example, right, before we start creating, before we start understanding how to create job requisitions, right? We'll cover, what is in pre-screening questions. Okay? And then before we, publish the requisitions, and, we will talk about, how the notifications has to be configured. Okay? And then, so all the everything is a prerequisites. Okay, so the prerequisites, the topics are like the prerequisites for each and every topics, and then from the system configurations perspective as well. So even from the system configurations, like this is how you have to start your configurations. So that is how we have defined the all the topics in all the modules. So we will start with the how to create requisitions. We'll talk in detail about the notifications, because the notifications are an important factor and element in the recruiting process. Not only recruiting, you take any modules, right? The notifications is a very critical one, because without notifications, the users will be they will be kept blank. So we'll see what kind of notifications and alerts we have, and then we will talk about the candidate selection process. Okay, so the CSP, we call it in short, we call it as CSP. The CSP is the backbone of the recruiting process. So we'll see how to define a candidate selection process and everything. And then we will start with the job application flow. Okay. So, what is a job application flow? The job application flow is basically like, we will design how whenever the candidates are applying to our requisitions in our career website, how the look and feel has to be like, which sections as the candidate has to fit. So the designing part of the job application is what we are going to do. And then we will talk about career sites. So, what is in career sites? How to define the career sites, how to configure everything. We'll see, and then we'll get into the job offers, and then we will get into the approvals. Approvals are very essential, and it's a very commonly used component in across the across the tuition applications, I would say. So the approvals are basically we can also call them as delegation of approvals or delegation of rules. So each customers will have different terminologies for it, but we'll see like how to configure approvals, everything, and then we have interviews. So these are basically all the relevant topics we have on the recruiting. Okay. So once we are done with the recruiting module, the next thing what we have is the onboarding. Okay. So once you hired a candidate, once you offered a candidate, and the next step would be onboarding the candidate, right? So as part of the onboarding, in Fusion we call them as journeys. So we'll see, how to, what kind of journeys can be created, what all the different functionalities we have, and why do we need to use, different functionalities, and what is the difference between each and every functionality. So we'll see in detail on the onboarding module. Okay. So once an employee is onboarded, okay, and then next comes the talent management. So we will have like the goals and performance, right? Most of us like are experienced employees, right? So as part of our day-to-day job, we will have the KPIs or the goals, and then year end we will have a performance meeting and all those things. So we'll see how to configure the same in Fusion applications. So yeah, just like how we define or how we set our KPIs, and and at the end of the year we will put our ratings, self ratings, and manager ratings. So all those things we'll see how to define it in the Fusion application. So this is what we are gonna see as part of our training sessions. And as part of our training sessions, right? What we'll do is, what we have done is, if you guys are aware, right? In Oracle Fusion, we get quarterly patch updates. So what is in quarterly patch updates? Quarterly patch updates are basically, right? Oracle release new functionalities once in every quarter. Okay. So in a year, like we'll have 4 quarterly patch updates. Okay, that means 4 times Oracle release, roll out new functionalities, new features, enhancements. A lot of things would be coming up from Oracle. So we will be seeing, all our training contents are updated with the latest version. So the current version, what we have is 24A. Okay. So all our training sessions are, equipped with or designed or redesigned, to make sure all the functionalities are, as of 24A are included in our training sessions. So this is what one thing which I just wanted to share. Okay. And then apart from that, once we complete the recruiting module, right, what we will do is at the end of the recruiting module, we have an activity called as final end user experience. Okay. So what we are going to do in the final end user experiences, right? We will, as part of this activity, what we are going to do is I will be acting as a customer. I'll be acting as your client. Okay. And then I would be giving you the requirements. We'll have certain requirements which are easy, and then certain requirements which are moderate, certain requirements which are very advanced and advanced level. So I'll be giving you requirements against for each and every one, and then you would have to configure that, and then you have to give a demo. So it's basically to give you guys a look and feel of like how it would be in real time environment. So out of all my training sessions, right, I would have taken like almost 35, 40 batches, right from COVID time. So out of all my training sessions, right, people always enjoy this final end user experience because it gives them that, the real life scenarios, the real life experience, where all the trainees will, collaborate and give a training session, start configuring the system. So this is one best feature we have in our training sessions. And similarly, the final end user experience we will be having across onboarding goals and performance management as well. And then we will also be discussing about the certifications. Right, if anyone of you are interested to take up the Oracle certification, we'll be discussing about the certifications as well. Like what are the topics to be prepared, and how the certification experience is going to be, and the use cases of the uses of getting an Oracle certification. We'll be seeing that as well. And apart from that, we would be discussing on this four topics, against each and every subtopic we get into, right? Whether it could be recruiting or onboarding or goals or performance, right? We'll be talking about this. We'll be talking a lot about the case studies. Right, I have like almost a decade experience in Fusion, and then I have a lot of friends and friends and colleagues who have been with the Fusion. So we get a lot of case studies. So, right, we'll be talking about the case studies, right, in our training session against each and every topic. Let's say, for example, when we go get into approvals. Okay, so I will be bringing in a lot of, requirements, a lot of case studies, right? If you get this kind of requirements, how you need to address it, right? And if you get this kind of requirements, how you need to see, we will not be sharing you the solutions, but we will be sharing you, the methodology on how to define a solution, right? Because once you know once you get trained on how to identify a methodology for the solution, right, then it would make your job easier, because we may have n number of requirements, and then we cannot provide like the solution for all the n number of requirements, right? So we'll be guiding you on how to the approach to get into the solution. That way it would be easier for you to handle or address any kind of requirements. So we'll be looking about the case studies against each and every subtopics and subtopics. Okay? And then customer requirements. We'll be sharing you a lot of customer requirements, and we'll be sharing you certain documents on how you prepare your requirements, right? In Fusion, documentation is very, very crucial, right? Documentation is very crucial in all the in every aspect of the IT, IT skill sets. But with Fusion, it is very, very critical, because you'll have different kind of documents, like we'll have design document, solution design document, we'll have AN100s, we have setup documents, functional requirements. So we have lot of documents. So we'll be discussing about those kind of documents as well, and how to prepare each and every document. And I will also be sharing you certain documents, the document templates, excluding the confidential data. So these are like the customer documents which I would be sharing it across. And again, these are like the non-confidential data, so you will not find anything about the customer for which these documents are prepared for. uh, but I will be sharing you those documents. That those documents will definitely give you a lot of insights on how to prepare the documentation. And then the most important thing, the interview based questions. So again, whenever we get into each and every topic and subtopics, we'll be talking in detail about the interview based questions. So let's say if we are talking about the job offers. Okay? So I'll be saying, like, what kind of interview questions you can expect. Okay? And then I'll also be sharing, like, the snippets of the interview questions based on your experience. Let's say, for example, if you're new to Fusion, right? people like who are freshers, right? Basically, when you guys get into those topics, I'll be giving you the snippets of for a fresher, what kind of questions we can expect. For an intermediate experience, 2 to 3 years experience in Fusion, what kind of questions we can expect, and different level of experience, what kind of questions we can expect. We'll be discussing that against each and every topics. So that is again very crucial one. And only what people do is they just write some notes against in their notepads or Excels about this interview questions. And at the end of the training session, right, I'll be giving a consolidated interview questions. A very consolidated interview questions against each module. You'll be having a separate a 150 200 question interview questions with the responses for the ORC module, and then another 100 questions on onboarding, and then another 150 questions on goals and performance, 150 to 200 questions on goals and performance combined together. So I'll be sharing you the interview based questions, but these questions would be shared at the end of the training sessions. The reason why we, certain documents we share at the end of the training session is this way it would be easy for you guys to, understand better. So that is one thing on the interview-based questions. And then I already talked about the certifications. We'll be talking about the certifications. Again, this certification, we'll be talking about, the respective topics and subtopics. It's not that, we'll be talking about the certifications in one entire session. We'll be talking the certification questions or topics against each and, respective topics. That way it would be easier for you to, understand. And then whenever you go back and look at the recordings, right, it would be easier for you to understand, in this topic, what kind of questions we can expect on interviews, what kind of questions we can expect on certifications. So these are the different topics which we'll be looking at against each and every topic, irrespective of whether the module is for ORC or onboarding or goals or performance. So this is about the topics and the agenda. And then we have Meta. Hi, Meta. Meta, can you able to hear us? No. So this is all about the agenda of the entire training sessions team. So any doubts or questions so far?
Hi. Oh, sorry, I wasn't able to unmute my my recording. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Meta, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hi, I'm sorry. I thought it was starting at, I think it was just starting at this time, not 30 minutes before. So that was my bad. So I'm a little late to the meeting. I'm sorry. Are you, what was your name again, sir?
Yes, so let me give a quick introduction. My name is Harish, and I'm going to be the trainer for this particular batch. And I have 14 years of experience in the IT space and working on Fusion for the last 10 years. I worked on modules like Core HR, Absence, Learn, and ORC, and Talent Management. So we started almost close to 25 minutes back. We were just going across the topics for the training sessions, and the structure of the training session, how we are going to have the training sessions. Basically the introduction, we are just having a little.
No, of course, and I think that the meeting's recorded as well, so I'll be able to go through it again if I need to, and because the timing that you guys have is definitely going to be an issue for me because I'm in Australia, so and I'm working, so it's basically going to be smack dab in the middle of my day. So there will be days where I may not be able to attend the call, the session. But I think I was told by Prasad that it's going to be recorded, so that I'll be able to refer to whatever I missed in the next session.
But sure. And Mithali, what is your experience, skills and experience?
Yeah, so actually, so real brief. Like I said, I don't want to keep everyone else this as well, but I've been working in Oracle for quite a while now. Recruiting is one area where I've not actually had a lot of experience, but I worked on core HR and other modules quite a bit. So I am very experienced with Oracle Fusion. The only thing I'm not experienced is in Recruiting Cloud. And for some reason, a couple of places I've tried to look into in terms of training. One of the things I'm hoping that you will help out when it comes to the ORC module is going to be at least the integration space, because like one of the biggest ones that most clients look for, because I have an implementation that may be coming up in a few weeks for me. It's one of the reasons why I'm interested in taking this course, is around the LinkedIn integrations, then possibly Zoom integrations for interview scheduling and things like that. So the thing is, I understand that those integrations are only done usually in production and not in the dev instances, because obviously LinkedIn doesn't have a dev instance. But there is literally no documentation on how those integrations actually look. Like, even if you look at Oracle University's training, they don't show anything in that area. So it's one of the things I'm hoping that is that something you will be able to help us with a little bit?
Yes, Mehta, true. So we have a separate topic. So basically, this is an Excel
Yes,
file with all the topics which we are gonna cover in the entire training session. To start with, we start with ORC, and then we get into onboarding, and then goals and performance. Okay, so these are the four modules which we look. And then in ORC, we have like a lot of topics. Like we made sure like all the topics is a prerequisite for your next topic. Okay, so we cover pretty much everything in the ORC module. And since you explicitly asked about integrations, right, we have a separate topic about third-party integrations where we'll see like, what are the integrations available. And then, the Teams and Zoom, right, the integration, those are like, something standard, those are like, inbuilt integration, right? So what we'll do is we'll be discussing those as part of our interview scheduling, because
sure,
those are like
sure,
functionalities which we use as part of interview. So we'll be looking into that. And the general integrations, right? The third party integrations, we'll have a separate session to see what kind of, integrations, what kind of, the support partners we have for, who supports integration with ORC module, how to enable the integrations. I have certain configuration packages. We will just quickly see like, how to enable that. And then if you have any project specific, doubts or questions, then we can have a separate session. If it is too advanced for the other people, then, we can have a separate session, or at the end of
sure,
the training session, we can spend like, 5-10 minutes, or maybe, or at the beginning of the training session, whichever you feel you're comfortable with. You can just drop
sure.
it. Let's say, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah, yeah.
right, you have certain project related questions, and then you wanted, some support or help on that. You can just pass a note to Prasad, and then we can have an, sessions accordingly.
Yeah, no, I got that. And I have already talked to him about that piece as well. Just a quick thing, these third-party integrations usually, do they take a lot of time in configuring?
See, to be
Because
frank, right,
I understand because I understand these are documents that Oracle themselves provides, in terms of, like, for example, LinkedIn or Indeed, there's a set of procedures that you follow in a PDF that's on linked on the Oracle support website, right? So is that usually how it happens? Or because the problem I've had with these things is I can't visualize them in my head, because there's no
right.
front end experience that anyone shows, and that's only someone who's actually done it knows that stuff.
Yes, that's true. So, what we will do is, right, if you have certain such document requirements, right? For example, like, as you said, the LinkedIn, the integration with LinkedIn recruiter system, right? Those are like, we will have only the setups from Oracle's, right? And then the look and feel of it, right? It can be done, or it can be seen only when we actually do this implementations, right? So what we'll do is like, I have certain documents from my customers, right? Where I have
Yeah,
enabled the integration with LinkedIn. So I can walk you through those documents, but I just wanted to give you a caution upfront that, those sessions will not be recorded, and you can, if required, you can take screenshots over the Zoom sessions,
of
but
course,
those
of course,
sessions will not be recorded because these are customer documents. So
of
wherever
course.
there is an impact on the confidentiality, we will see what is the best we can, see, end of the day, we wanted to share as much knowledge to all our trainees, making sure like, ethically we don't violate any of our customer, clauses.
No, of course. And the point is not around getting access to confidential data. To me, the point is, if someone tells me that I want you to implement this particular interface or integration, I need to be able to understand how that actually works from an actual, from a practical purpose, right? Otherwise, during testing, it's like, how do I know even what to do? I can configure something, but then if I don't know what the actual configuration or the actual user experience looks like for someone who's going to use that integration, that because of it becomes an issue. But yeah, that's something we can discuss going forward. That's fine.
Sure, Mehta. So, so as just wanted to recap, like, we will be having our training session starting at 8 a.m. IST till 9:30 a.m. IST.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, I'm going to do what I'm going to do is I will try to attend as many as I can. So by tomorrow, I'll decide, because like I said, I am actually I work full time from 9 to 5 my time in Australia. So this is like 1 to 2:30 p.m. my time, which becomes which could be a time where I may be needed for meetings and things like that. So I'll try to, I'm going to have to decide if I'm going to continue this course or not. But at the moment, I think if I do, I will be there for most days, but there will be days where I will not be able to attend.
Sure. That is understood completely. Okay. And also, as a
Thanks.
general
Yeah,
note to everyone, right? Let's say if you could not able to attend certain sessions, right? You can, as I said, the recording would be available on the same day or maximum by the next day before the training gets started. So that's how we normally put the recordings. And then at any given point of time, let's say, you have a requirement, in your current projects, or you're expecting certain projects. So let's say if you have some a huge number of Q&As, like let's say in one batch, like there was a consultant who was implementing ORC, and she had like a huge number of questions, right, which we cannot discuss over the training session because that would consume the entire 90 minutes duration. So what we suggested is, like we asked her to share us like a document with all the questions she had, and then we responded back to her via email, with the response to each of the questions. And then that has helped us to reduce the time spent on the Q&A from 90 minutes to like 15 minutes. So that is what the
absolutely.
best we normally able to do.
Yep, that's practical.
And also we have people across various experiences. As you see, like we have majority of the people who are like new into the fusion application, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the sessions redrafted in a way that it will be very informative for the freshers, and then it would be an a refresher for someone who has good hands-on experience with fusion. So that's how we are going to redefine. So based on the final number of people who has enrolled, right, based on the skills and experience, we will be redrafting, if not completely, right, a minor part of the training sessions to ensure, all the people are, who has enrolled, will get, benefited from the training session. So with that, right, Mehta, just for your information, right, today and tomorrow we will be having only like, the session for like, 40, 15 minutes, as this is just the beginning of the training session, right? So we just wanted to keep it short to make sure, like, not sharing, not to put too much of information to the people who, into the session. So that's one thing. And then what we'll do is, now that we talked about the process, the agenda and everything, right? Since we have a lot of people who are new to the fusion execution world, so let me just give them an idea about how the fusion projects normally look like. So let me just bring that my cell phone. Just give me 1 second. Just trying to open another Excel file. Okay. So for the people who are new to the fusion, who are new to the IT space, right? This is uh, a project lifecycle file. Okay? So we will see, like how normally and whenever we start a project, right? What are the different milestones we have. So basically, to give you guys an idea about how and the project structures looks like. Okay? So we have the column B talks about the milestones. Every project will have milestones. Every implementation project will have a milestones. Milestones are basically checkpoints in the project space. Okay? And then we'll have column C where we talk about the instances, like In Fusion, we call, the place where we access the application, right? We call them as instance. So we'll see like, for each and every milestone, which instance we'll be using. And then for each and every milestone, like, who would be the stakeholders and what kind of documents would be needed for each and every milestones. So the first milestone which we will have in any of the implementation projects is like, the kickoff meeting. So what do we do in the kickoff meeting, right? That in the kickoff meeting, all the major stakeholders would be there where they will finalize on the scope of the project, like, what kind of modules they wanted to implement, for which locations, if they have multiple companies, they'll decide which companies would be implemented on a first level. And then, or we call it as like, on phase one, and then which companies would be implemented on phase two. So all those things would be, discussed as part of the kickoff meetings. And then before I go any further, right, just wanted to give you quick update is. So this terminologies which we use in the milestones, right, these are a generic terminologies which we have. And then this terminologies will change from customer to customer. For example, in implementation companies and mid-level companies, we use the term called CRP, conference room pilot. Whereas if you go to Oracle or, ENY, KPMG or Deloitte, right? The big companies, corporates, right? They, instead of CRP, they use this term called playback. Okay? And then when it comes to the workshop, right? The corporates, they don't use this term called workshops. They use, some customers, they use this term called discovery sessions. And then, some customers, they use familiarization sessions. So the terminologies may change, but the meaning always remains the same. So the second milestone which we have is the workshop, where all the stakeholders would be there, from the implementation partner and from the customer. And then we discuss about, the MVPs. We call it as the modern best practice. So we'll be showcasing the customers about, what each module or each product can able to do. Just an end-to-end flow on, about the PPTs. And then we have one document called as KSCs. So what is this KSC called as? This KSC is called as key system configurators. And then, this document basically is where we get the requirements from the customers. This document, for example, right, let's take Core HR. How many legal entities we need? What is the name of the enterprise? And then, how many business units we have, I can see. So basically gathering the requirements from the customer is what we, capture in the KSCs. And then we will also have, we'll talk about the instances, like, what kind of instances we are going to use for each of this milestone activities. So once the workshop is done, and we will start with the CRP one or the playback one. So what we do in the CRP one or the playback one is like, we do a vanilla configuration in the system. So in IT space right now, we have this terminologies, or we use this terminologies as vanilla and niche. Okay? So what does the vanilla configuration means? Vanilla configuration means like, we do in basic setups. Right now, for example, when it comes to the recruiting, we create an, a standard selection process. We create, Oracle standards job application flow is standard career site. So this is how we will be configuring the system, and then we'll be giving a demo to the customers on during the CRP1 or the playback 2, just to make the customers understand, how the system looks like, and how the requirements has to be shared and everything. So what kind of documents we normally use for the CRP? We go with, the PPTs. So each and every session, you guys know, right? The PPTs, we start the session with the PPTs, and then we'll have the minutes of the meeting to capture what was discussed, what were the question asked, what was the solutions given, if there are any, tasks which has been pending against any stakeholders. All those things would be captured in the minutes of the meeting. And then we will also have the cases which we discuss about in the workshop session, right? So we'll have the cases. The cases keeps updating. There'll be multiple versions, on that. And then we have BRD. What is in BRD? BRD is the business requirement document, where we will draft all the all the requirements which we get from the customer in a neatly drafted document. Okay. So I have KHCs for all the modules. I'll be sharing you across I'll be sharing you across those Excel files once we complete, the respective modules. Let's say once we complete the ORC module, right? Then I'll be sharing you the KCs, and then modern best practice PPTs, and then business requirement documents, and then I have certain AN100 documents for different technical components. So I'll be sharing across those documents to you guys. And then once we complete, the CRP1 or the playback one, right, with the vanilla configurations, we freeze the requirements from the customers. Okay? So because the customers know how the system behaves, and then we will help the customers in plotting the requirements with the system behaviors, and then we normally freeze, the requirements, and then based on those requirements, right, then we will have the playback to our CRP2 sessions. So again, for all the CRP1, CRP2, CRP3, KUT, UT, for all those things, for all those milestones, we normally have the functional consultants, technical consultants, and then we will have a project manager from an implementation partner side. And then apart from that, we'll have a project manager from the customer side, and then there will be certain critical users from the customer side as well. So next milestone which we have is the CRP2 or the playback 2. So what we are going to do is on CRP2 or the playback 2, we'll be doing the configurations to the application based on the actual requirements, which we get through the KSC documents. Okay? So for each and every milestone, right, we will have different instances. Okay? So we first, CRP1, we may use dev1, and then for CRP2, we may use test instance. So, based on the customers scope, we will be using the different instance. Certain customers, they will have like, multiple instance. Certain customers, they'll have like, one or two staging instance. So it depends on the customer's number of instance, we'll be using those instances accordingly. And then the CRP2 will be doing an actual configurations based on the KSCs. And then we'll have the documents like, just like how we had the documents for CRP1, we'll have the same documents, PPTs, minutes of the meeting, cases, BRDs, all those documents will be there. And then if there is any major change on the requirements, or if there are a lot of changes in the requirements, okay, which would normally people, customer implementation partners, they don't encourage any major changes to the requirements. Let's say, for example, from having, two legal entities, now they wanted to make three legal entities, or, those kind of major changes, right? Because based on your entities, your securities, your rules, everything gets changed, right? And then, let's say from, having single assignment to having like, multiple assignments. These are major change, which involves the entire change in the setups. So normally people, they don't agree on those, but if, based on again, the project to project, right, customer to customer, if there are any major changes, and then if there is a need for CRP2, we'll be having in CRP3 sessions. So the CRP3 or the playback 3 are, basically it's an optional one. We don't have it regularly on all the projects, but out of my last 10 years working in Fusion, right, I have seen like, almost like 40% of my projects had, the CRP or the playback 3 sessions. So where we will, redraft the, configurations based on the revised requirements from the customer, and then we'll be having the CRP3 or the playback 3. So once we are done with the CRP sessions, we get a sign off, from the customer. So we get a sign off from the customer, against each and every milestone. Okay, so we'll be having a sign off. And then once we are done with the CRP3, the next would be the KUT session. KUT is also called as the key user training. What we do as part of the KUT is we will be training the end users on how to use the system. So we'll be training because they are very new to the system, right? So we'll be training them on how to use the system. So we'll be having all the documents, just like, how all the documents which we talked in the previous milestones. And on top of it, we will have a document called as user guides. So the user guides, it could be in PPT or in Word file, depends on customers. So we will have a user guides where, this user guides will help the customers on, how to use the system. Okay? And then we'll be doing an, on-hand training to the users as well. Okay? And then once you're done with the KUT, key user training, now that, you taught the customers on how to use the system, the next step would be the UAT. So what is a UAT? User acceptance testing. What the customers are going to do in UAT, they are going to test the system based on the configurations, what we have done, which is based on the KSCs or the requirements which we get from the customer. So from the documents perspective, everything what we used in the KUT, and on top of that, we will have a test script. So what is a test scripts? Test scripts are basically, it's in steps, or like, it's a step, it's a steps where we'll ask the customer to, test the systems. Okay, so to give an example, right, the most common thing which we always have in the test scripts is like, logging into the system, right? So what we do is we have, the first task, which is like, logging into the system. And then under that, we'll have multiple steps. Go to this particular URL, enter the username as so and so, enter the password as so and so. Once you click on submit, you should be able to log in into the application. And then for this particular step, we'll have the test results, which is like, pass or fail. And then we'll have certain comments. Okay? And then to get into the advanced level, right? When you create a requisition, in the first section, you should able to see all these values. And then what is the test result? So we will have to prepare test scripts for each and every, topic and subtopics, basically all the configurations. So again, these are certain documents, the user gets the test scripts. These are again certain documents which I will be sharing across along with all the other documents which we talked about, right? At the end of the training session against each and every module. Okay. So this test scripts will give you an idea, and based on that, you can be able to start preparing your own test scripts for your implementations as well. So once the customer starts testing the application, there would be certain bugs and certain issues, as part of the testing, right? So we'll be getting those information from the customers, and then we'll fix those issues. And then once we fix the issues, customers will retest those setups again. So until and unless, till it is working as expected, or as promised, the customers would keep testing it, and then we have to fix all the issues. Once the UAT is done, once the UAT is completed, next, the major step would be the production configuration. So the production configuration where, see, till now, all the milestones we'll be working on, the staging instance, which is like, the lower instance, whether it could be a test instance or dev instance. But when it comes to the production configuration, right, we'll be doing the configurations on the production instance. Okay? So the stakeholders would be like, the functional consultants and the technical consultants from the implementation part. Okay? And then from the documents, we will have like, a lot of documents with the actual data, which we get from the customers. So let's say if the customer says they have 20,000 inputs, then we get 20,000. Or when it comes to the recruiting, the customer says, they have like, and they use an existing tool where they have like, some 400, 500 acquisition. Then we have to load all those 400, 500 acquisitions based on the scope. And then, the setups, all the setups, whatever we have done, we will be doing in the production. And then the setup document, which I mentioned, okay, the setup document will contain all the setups which we have done in the production. See, ideally, as a best practice, what I do is that, even if I make a minor change, let's say, for example, in one page, in the selection process, right, even if I add an extra yes in the system using, any customization tool, right, even those would be captured in the setup documents. The reason being is that, this setup documents is going to be the Bible for your customers. Anything in the future, if they have any issues, they would be referring back to your setup documents to see what is the changes we have done. So setup documents are, for me personally, is the most critical document in the entire implementation projects. Basically, in the entire project, right, the setup document is very critical because that's where that's where we capture each and everything what we have done in the system. And once we are done with the production configuration, the next and the most happiest part of the implementation, which is the go live. So we'll say, customers, they normally send a welcome email. Sometimes certain customers, we send a welcome email from the Fusion application. Some customers, they send it from, their Outlooks, and, welcome email where the customers will, all the end users will start using the applications. So once they start using the applications, then starts our post go live support. So what we do is, whenever we went live with any of the projects, we post project, we call it as hypercare. So the hypercare duration could be, anywhere between 1 month to 2 years, depends on, your agreement with your customer. So what we do in the hypercare is like, once customer starts, all the end users starts using the application, there'll be certain, setups, or there'll be certain issues coming up. Like, some of our setups may not be working as expected, right? Then what we do is we normally fix those issues, in the lower instance, and then replicate the same, the fix in the production instance as well. So this, the post go live or the hypercare, the duration would be, based on our agreements. And once the, the post go live support is done, we will have like, the AMCs normally. It could be the same vendor or it could be some other vendor who would be taking care and start with the AMC activities, or sometimes it could be an in-house team. So this is an overview of how an implementation project would look like. So the reason why I spend a good amount of time on to understand this is just to give an understanding for people who are new to the Fusion, right? How the implementation projects would look like. And then apart from this, we have we use this terminologies very often in our projects. Okay, one is called P2T, and which is like migrating or getting a copy of the data from production to the test or the dev instance, and then similarly from test to dev instance. So we normally do that as part of our as part of the implementation projects. So any doubts or questions so far, team, on this?
So Harish, so all the projects will go with this 10 steps, like CRP1, CRP2, 3, like from starting from the kickoff to go live support.
See, these are like, the implementation projects normally go with this methodologies. And then there could be certain projects where like, they may have a different methodologies, but these are like, very general practice.
Okay, okay. So I have a scenario here. So when we do a configuration or implementation for a in-house project, so we will get a chance to interact with the core team in the sense of if we are implementing on ORC, we will have an interaction with the TA team. So whereas when we are implementing for client side, so do we get a chance to interact with the client TA team, or so how that works?
Okay. See, basically, you will be interacting with, the actual core team when you're doing an implementation. Let's say when I'm doing an implementation for ORC, right? I get to speak with the TA team, the TA managers, even sometimes I get to speak with, the basic, the lowest level of, team member in the recruitment, which would be the interview coordinators.
Okay,
The
okay.
reason being that that's where we get to understand what are the pain points. Okay. Once you understood the pain points, then giving them an effective solution would be easier.
Okay, got it. So and
So whether irrespective whether you're doing an in-house implementation or you're from an implementation partner doing an implementation for a customer, you would definitely be coordinating with your customer stakeholders. The stakeholders would definitely be involved.
okay, perfect. Thank you. So the second question is like you have mentioned like 24A is the latest version, right? So
Yes.
be it on any module, this 24A is the latest version.
Yes, for a
Okay,
Fusion, the 24A is the latest version across all the HCM modules.
okay. So that
I'm
means
sure.
the
Yeah, go
yes,
ahead,
Harish,
Devaj.
you can. So that means all the functional or a technical consultant, they will be working, they will have an experience working on 24A. That what it means.
See, ideally speaking, Rajendra, that's a very challenging question. See, as a functional
Uh-huh.
consultant, as a best practice, what I normally people do is, when there is a new version, the new release comes up, right? We normally go
Mhm.
through those release and see what are the new functionalities. Rather, even spending, the first thing what I personally do is whenever there is a new version coming up, right? We have certain things, which would be decommissioned from Oracle, or certain functionalities which should be removed from Oracle. Okay, so in the readiness document, we have certain things called as important actions to consider. Okay. So that would be the first place which I normally visit, to see if there are any impacts coming up or because of this quarterly updates. If there are no impacts, then I start getting into, the new features, functionalities, what is the new things coming up, because yeah, it's again, based on your project to project, for example, in my current project, it's a support project. Okay. So
Mhm.
whenever there is a new version, new release coming up, we have a series of activities which have to do. First, the 24A gets updated in our test and the dev instance. So we do a smoke test and then see, we'll have a separate discussions with the customers. explaining what are the new functionalities, and then we'll discuss and finalize which of those new functionalities has to be implemented. So, and then we do it in the production. We implement it in the test instance first, do and testings, everything, keep it ready. And then once the production is updated to 24 years, then we migrate those in the production.
Okay.
But
Okay.
ideally, all the consultants should be looking into the new releases. But unfortunately, there are some who don't pay attention to those things. But
Okay.
people who pay attention to those things, they always have an upper hand in the market.
Got it. But that is not mandatory, right? So, like,
That is mandatory. Yes, that is
that is
mandatory.
mandatory. Okay. Okay.
Because
So,
if you don't go through the new releases, right? Let's say for example, we are in February of 2024, where we are currently on 24 year. Let's say if once we move to December 2025, where we'll be having 25B version. And then if you don't get yourself updated for 2 years, right? What will happen is when you're doing an implementation, right? You will not have an updated new functionalities in the system. You might be talking about certain functionality, but that functionality would have been decommissioned by Oracle as part of 24D. Right?
okay.
So
Okay.
you will be outdated.
Okay, got it. So my last question is that, so you were mentioning this functional consultant as an end user, right? So there is difference between the end user and the person who implement and do configuration, right? So end user in the sense of who uses Oracle Fusion.
Correct. Yes.
Correct.
The customers, basically, we call them as end users.
End user. So this Oracle functional consultant, they will not be, they are not an end user, right?
No, they are not the end user. They are the
Okay.
functional consultants and technical consultants. That's basically us. The one who is implementing the system.
Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Sure. So, Rajendra, what's your skills and
Oh,
experience?
sorry. So this is my dad's laptop, so that is the reason
Oh,
it
okay.
comes Rajendran. So my name is Franklin.
Okay, fine.
Change it
Yeah,
by,
sure.
so I will change it.
Yeah, sure. So, any other doubts or questions, team, for today? Okay. So, team, if there are no other doubts and questions, then what we'll do is, we'll just take a quick pass for today, and then, we'll regroup tomorrow at 8 a.m. IST. And then tomorrow, before we get started with the session, what I'll do is I'll just go a little further and, give you a look and feel of how the Fusion application will look like. Before we get started with the recruiting module, I'll just show you how the Fusion application will look like, and then we'll discuss in detail about the different functionalities we have in Fusion application, and then we'll get started with the recruiting modules. So if there are no other doubts or questions, then we will wind up for today's session, and then we'll regroup tomorrow at 8 a.m. IST. So thank you so much, guys. You guys have a great day. Be safe, and let's connect tomorrow at 8 a.m. IST.
Thank you, Harish. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harish.
Thank you, Harish.
Thank you.